All right, tonight, a brand new scandal involving anti-Trump FBI lovebirds Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Newly obtained text messages between Strzok and Page are revealing damning new information. Now, Strzok, we find out today, is friends with federal judge Rudolph Canteras, who sits now on the FISA court. Now, the romantically involved Trump haters, Strzok and Page, also messaged about attending a cocktail party with this judge, Judge Contreras. Now, here's what is really disturbing. The judge presided over the hearing where Lieutenant General Michael Flynn pled guilty to lying to the FBI. Now, there's a lot of other important context to explain here. We'll do that in just a minute. But first, let's take a look at these brand new text messages. Let's start. July 25th, 2016. Page writes, Rudy, the judge we're talking about, is on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. Did you know that? And Page adds, just, appointed 2 months ago. Strzok replies, I did. And we talked about it before and after. I need to get together with him so Strzok and Judge Contreras know each other. Now, Page later writes, as you read through this, thought of it because you had to Google Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court judges and saw him there. I'm telling you. Strzok follows up with, well, she brought up a good point about being circumspect in talking to him in terms of not placing him in a situation where he'd actually have to recuse himself. And Page then texts, I can't imagine either one of you ever talking about anything in detail meaningful enough to warrant a recusal. And Page says, well, anyway, maybe you didn't mean to, but didn't. And Strzok answers, really, Rudy? I'm in charge of espionage for the FBI. Any espionage, FISA comes before him. What should he do, given his friend oversees them? Page replies, in this particular case, standards for recusal, though, are quite high. I just don't think this poses an actual conflict, and he doesn't know what you do. And then Strzok responds, yeah, generally does know what I do. Not to the level or the scope or area, but he's super thoughtful and rigorous about ethics and conflicts. I'm suggesting a social setting with others would probably be better than a one-on-one meeting. I'm sorry. I'm just going to have to invite you to the cocktail party. You can sit next to me. I'm adding that part. Then Strzok continues, of course, you'll be there. Have to come up with some other work people cover for action. And Page writes, why more? 6 is perfectly fine for a dinner party. Oh, 6, intimate setting. They know each other. He's in his position, the judge in his position. There's a lot to unpack here. So what is clear is that Peter Strzok knew the judge and that both he and Page wanted to attend a party with him. That is a massive conflict of interest. Engineering a meeting with a FISA judge under false pretenses, in this case a cocktail party, that could actually be obstruction and have other criminal liability. We'll ask Greg Jarrett in a minute. What is really inexcusable is that the Department of Justice fought like hell, especially Rod Rosenstein, to keep this information secret. Now, Sarah Carter reporting that congressional investigators working for Congressman Jim Jordan, Congressman Mark Meadows, they discovered these text messages at the DOJ's headquarters, and this is part of the outrage. According to Sarah Carter, of the 1.2 million documents the DOJ Inspector General has acquired, the House Oversight Committee has only received just over 3,000, quote, unique documents. That means the DOJ never, ever wanted this stunning information to get out. They've been trying to hide it. Remember back in January, the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, begging in the final hours before they had to turn this information over, begging Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, allow the DOJ not to turn over the documents related to the Russia investigation to Devin Nunes and these congressional committees. It's now clear why Rod Rosenstein, that guy that appointed Mueller, now did this. It's all part of a year-long pattern of obstruction, of stonewalling, noncompliance in Congress's efforts, by the way, and constitutional duty to investigate and oversee the actions at the DOJ. It's called checks and balances. Think about this for a second. If Rod Rosenstein had his way, we wouldn't know about any of these scandals. People now need to be held accountable. This is why people like, Grassley and Tillis and Cornyn and Graham are demanding, as we have been demanding for a year, a second special counsel to investigate the investigators. They can't investigate themselves. Now, as for that very important context, we learned that Strzok and Judge Contreras were friends, and that Judge Contreras oversaw the Flynn case, which, after he accepted the plea, it was a mystery. Why did he then recuse himself? Now, we still don't know the exact reason why, but this could have something to do with it. We also know that Peter Strzok was the FBI agent. He oversaw the January 2017 White House interview of Lieutenant General Flynn. And here's what we really need more information on. Strzok is the former FBI counterintelligence official who signed the paperwork to start the entire Russia investigation. And as these new text messages revealed, Judge Contreras was on the FISA court. And sources have been telling us that Judge Contreras may have signed off on one of the FISA applications to approve the warrant to spy on Carter Page, Trump associate, which means the Trump campaign, which likely gave the FBI access to Trump campaign communications. This is stunning, it is corrupt, it is an abuse of power, and it shows inexcusable biases and conflicts of interest that the Department of Justice has tried to conceal. Now, we need to know all the communications between Strzok, Page, and Contreras. As a matter of fact, release all the Strzok-Page text messages, everything you got. We need to find out if Strzok was involved in putting together the FISA application for Carter Page. He was a former high-ranking counterintelligence official who was bragging about it. Now, the FISA warrant for Page was signed in October 2016. Strzok was fired from Mueller's team in August of 2017. So it is time for Strzok to tell us, what did he know, when did he know it, how does this guy have a job? And don't forget, Lisa Page was advising Andrew McCabe. Now, we did also reach out to Judge Contreras for comment. He didn't get back to us. And also breaking right now, USA Today is reporting the Justice Department is considering publicly releasing parts of the FISA surveillance order against Carter Page. How about releasing all of it? Now, this would mean we would get to see exactly how that fake news dossier, the bulk of which was used to get the FISA warrant against Page, was used, and how the FBI misled on purpose, purposefully omitted information to FISA judges about Clinton that she bought and paid for that fake news, phony Russian dossier. And also tonight, a significant new development. Speaking of Christopher Steele, Fox News tonight reporting a British court is now ordering Steele to sit for a videotape deposition as part of an ongoing legal battle against BuzzFeed, the website that published the fake news dossier. Now, to call this huge is a massive understatement. Now, Steele will likely be forced to try and verify the dossier that he and Fusion GPS and the FBI never verified, never corroborated. So in other words, Steele will, under oath, have to admit whether or not he knew the dossier was full of lies from his phony Russian sources, but gave it to the FBI anyway. And according to a new book, Steele told friends that it was kind of 50-50 about the most salacious part of the dossier. That's the part that involved the hookers at the Ritz-Carlton urinating on a bed. And we also have learned more about Steele's use of current and former Russian government sources. We're going to be following this story very closely. All right, but also breaking right now, new details on the timeline for former Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe to be fired and lose his pension. Now, we're learning that the deadline could now be Saturday. And as we have been explaining, the fact that McCabe is even in this position is stunning. It is inexcusable. He means he did something drastically, radically wrong. Our sources are telling us that McCabe could end up facing multiple criminal charges. Forget about the pension. And just a few months ago, McCabe was put on leave after current FBI Director Christopher Wray was reportedly informed that McCabe was going to be exposed in the upcoming Inspector General's report. I can't wait for that report. And also tonight, as we have predicted for months, the disgraced former FBI director, Jim Comey, he's prepared to cash in on his newfound fame. I did predict that. You know, in just a few weeks, Comey's going to kick off his whirlwind book tour. He's got tough interviews with Stephen Colbert, Clinton sycophant George Stephanopoulos, and a cozy sit-down with the ladies of The View. And according to a new report from Axios, Comey's planning to, quote, come out hot and correct all the so-called lies about him and the FBI. For months, We have literally been bringing you, the American people, on a nightly basis, breaking news, hard-hitting investigative reports about the corruption at some of the highest levels of our government, including the shocking details about the abuse of power at the very top of the FBI. Now, James Comey, you want to come out hot? You want to answer hard, important questions? You're welcome on this program. Tonight, I am officially opening up an invitation to Jim Comey. You want to sell your book? Come on the show. We'll give you a full hour. You name a day, we'll make it work. We'll work with your schedule. I'll give you 3 hours on my nationally syndicated radio show, which, by the way, is on 575 radio stations around America, so everybody can hear from you. And we'll ask you the tough questions, the ones that Stephen Colbert might miss. For example, did you, in fact, tell a closed session of Congress that you believe Michael Flynn did not lie to the FBI? Did you think he's being unfairly prosecuted? Why did you draft a letter exonerating Hillary Clinton of charges in the email investigation months before she was interviewed by the FBI and 17 other important people? And will you explain the lies and the omissions to the FISA court? And why did you tell Trump that the dossier was unverified and salacious 3 months after you allowed the same dossier to be presented to the FISA court when you didn't tell the FISA court Hillary bought and paid for it, and you knew that? Why did you withhold the fact that Clinton paid for the dirty dossier? And how do you explain your unlawful leaking of classified information to the media after you were fired? You know, through that Columbia professor you wanted the special counsel? Jim Comey, if you're looking for fame and fortune, you want to sell books, by all means, have fun on The View. Have a great time. Yuck it up with Colbert. Hang out with George Stephanopoulos. Go get a beer afterwards. But if you really want to reach all Americans, defend your honor, if you really want to tell the truth, we've got a lot of questions for you. Come on this show. A full hour, 3 hours of radio. That's the best deal you're going to get. We'll lay out all the facts. We'll lay out all the evidence. We'll give you a chance to respond. And as we say here at Fox, well, we report. We'll let our audience decide if you're telling the truth.